I heard something about vent fan lovers this week and buck fans. Buck doors? I can't read your notes. I'm going to be honest. All right, here we go. Are you ready? Are you ready for episode 12?
Born ready. So ready.
I got the notes here, right in from the producer. Handwriting is a little tricky. Gutters, I can see that. Bed frame, yes. Mm-hmm. There's two on here I'm not so sure about. Vent fan lovers. I don't know if this is something you wanted to talk to me about.
Well, it's mostly just my handwriting.
Okay, and then buck doors.
Well, sometimes things get a little swoopy. I don't always connect all the letters.
Yeah, I mean, people have really been asking what we're going to do with the doors. Apparently we're using buck doors. Buck doors. Doors so large you could let a buck in your house. They are pretty big.
I like vent fan lovers.
Vent fan lovers and buck doors. Yeah, I really want to see what these vent fan lovers are, so I think we should get right into episode 12.
I think it sounds more interesting than vent fan covers and back doors, so let's do it.
All right, here we go.
Ride across this country into the starlight. 12,000 miles, turn back, do it again. No destination, it's just a journey. You were my lover and friend.
This is episode 12. We are putting gutters on the outside of the Unicell. We are also adding vent fan covers inside on the ceiling. And the big things this week is building the bed frame and also installing the back doors.
Those are really, really big things, and I'm excited to hear about it. So go ahead, roll the footage, and tell me all about it.
Roll that tasty footage.
Roll that juicy corn footage.
We'll start with the smaller projects this week, and the first one was adding the covers to the vent fans that we installed a few episodes back. This is a super simple process. These covers come with the vent fans when you purchase them. All we had to do was set them on our table, mark everything, trim them with a jigsaw, and get them back up into place. They then get screwed right into the ceiling, and it really doesn't get easier than that.
This is basically just a nice finishing piece of trim. It adds a lot. It really makes it feel finished. I don't know why we didn't put them up there early, because as soon as you put it in, it was like, okay, the ceiling's complete.
We were just tired.
Yeah.
Moving right along, the second thing up this week was adding gutters. This is a drip rail that has VHB tape on the back of it. Again, really easy to install. We like to add these to the outside of our vehicles because it just minimizes the risk of your windows leaking. It kind of diverts the water away from the windows and off to the sides. So we added these onto the door, the Arctic Tern Wildlands door, our two kitchen windows, and the taco truck window. This is just good insurance. It's definitely not necessary, but we do like to do it because whenever you can minimize the risk of those windows leaking over time, we like to do that. So why not?
Yeah, I'm actually a really big fan of these because, like what you said, they just take the water away from the windows. So even if there is a very small leak, they do a lot to keep as much water off of that window in the first place. And they do a really good job, surprisingly, for how small they are, and just stick right on. Big fan.
We also seal the outside of our windows with caulk, and so putting this drip rail up just saves that top bead of caulk from taking an unnecessary amount of weathering, from water dripping off the roof, from rain running down the side of the vehicle. This is just a really easy thing to add. We've put it on all of our vehicles, and we really like it so far. In all of our builds, we have made our bed frames out of metal. So this is now our third metal bed frame that we are building. Each one has been a little bit different, but that's just because of what the vehicle itself dictates. We had a weird gas intake in one of the vehicles. We've just had different challenges with each platform, so they've been a little bit different, but the basics of the design are the same. Now, in the beginning, it was a project that I would do with my dad because I hadn't quite learned how to weld yet, or I wasn't quite good enough at welding to complete the project myself. But for this build, as as my dad says, I have graduated. So I can take on this project completely on my own. One of the best things about this Unicell versus building in the buses is that we have that huge open doorway in the back of the vehicle. So what I really wanted for this bed frame was to be able to build it in our shop completely outside of the vehicle. I didn't want to have to be welding in that tight space. It just wasn't necessary when we have such a huge entryway in the back. So when sitting down to design this bed frame, being able to actually get it into the back of the vehicle and set it down into place was a huge consideration in how it was designed. I couldn't just put the posts on the farthest ends of the bed frame, otherwise just with all the angles, you wouldn't be able to set it into place. We do have a little lip on the edge of the door. So the solution to this was just to move those vertical supports back inside the frame a little bit. So one end has a bit of an overhang, but that allowed us to be able to complete the whole thing outside the vehicle and then just set it into place, which is one of the biggest advantages of this Unicell, is you can build most of the components outside and bring them in later. I made this bed frame out of 16 gauge 1x2 steel tubing, and this was actually extra tubing that we had left over from when we framed out the vehicle itself. When we were welding in all those different supports into the walls to frame out the windows and the door, I over-ordered 1x2s, but it actually worked out really well because it was the perfect amount that we needed for our bed frame. So that was a happy accident. First, I made both sides of the bed frame, the side that will go in towards the rest of the vehicle and the side that will face out the doorway. Then I set those up into place and I added the horizontal side-to-side supports. I welded all of these supports into place, checking and rechecking that everything is square. It's so important that this bed frame stays square and it stays in place, because if it was off even a little bit, it's not gonna fit in the Unicell.
I know that I just met you, but you look, oh girl, you blow my mind. I know what I would like to do, but you just keep on talking. I see your dog needs walking. Your folk drive you insane. I know, yeah, that's true. Of course, you ain't the one to blame. Keep on talking to me. You keep on telling me your dreams. You keep on talking to me, but I just wanna see you move. Yeah, I just wanna see you move. I just wanna see you move. Yeah, I just wanna see you move. Sure, I like to listen. It's not like I don't wanna know. It's just that you've been talking to me 3 nights in a row. I think it's time to let go. Forget the past, just lose control. 'Cause life's too short for yapping. Come on and dance, come give me soul.
I flipped the frame over, welded the underside, and again just checked all of those measurements, made sure it was exactly the size that it was supposed to be.
You keep on telling me your dreams. You keep on talking, but I just wanna see you move.
One of the big changes this year was building the closet at the end of the bed out of metal. In the past, I just wasn't as proficient at welding as I am this year, and so leaning on woodworking was a little bit more time efficient for us. But this year, with all that I've learned in the projects that I've tackled, it really made a lot of sense to make this closet out of metal, or at least frame it out of metal. We could save weight, we could save time, I could do the closet build at the same time as the bed frame. It just really made a lot of sense. So I made the closet separate from the bed because again, if I attached it to the bed frame, it would never fit into the vehicle. So I made these as 2 separate pieces, and the closet was made out of a combination of 1x1 tubing and a little bit of the leftover angle that I had from our kitchen cabinet build. Structurally, this worked pretty well because it is going to be welded right onto the bed frame, and it's going to be screwed right up into those ceiling supports in the actual frame of the vehicle. So really all it needed to be able to do was hold the plywood up that we'll be skinning the closet with and just keep itself in place. The last part was taking everything outside, and the bed frame and the closet both got a coat of black paint.
Hey, girl, I saw you sitting wrong, but don't be wasting time. I wanna see your smile. Hey, you wanna go with me? I'll be your fantasy. Let's do this secretly.
Once everything was dry, it was time to put it into the Unicell, see if it would fit into the end of the vehicle if I got all those angles right. Guest appearance by my grandpa here. He was the one that was around the shop that day, so I asked him to help me lift this into the vehicle. Of course, I couldn't do that on my own.
Sure you could.
That was a little bit too much for one person. So he helped me lift it into the back of the vehicle. We kind of wedged it around and tried to see how it was gonna fit. And with one end up, you could push it in and then set it right down into place. The next day, Drew was back. We lifted the closet frame right up against the ceiling and slid it all the way to the end of the bed frame, making sure that each of the legs were clamped exactly in place before I could actually weld all 4 feet.
Hey, girl, I saw you sitting wrong, but don't be wasting time. I wanna see your smile. Hey, you wanna go with me? I'll be your fantasy. Let's do this secretly. And if you stay tonight, yeah, if I do alright, you might be coming back for more. And if you're coming back, we must be on the right track, and I'll be stepping up for sure. If it's alright with you, I'll book a table for 2 at this fancy restaurant. And if you still want me, I'll make sure to be the best you ever had. If I was your man, I'd be the best you ever had. If I was your man.
We also secured the top of the closet right into the framing in the ceiling of the Unicell. So it's now welded right onto the bed frame and secured right into the ceiling framing of the vehicle. It really doesn't have any way that it could move at all. Just like the bed frame, it's built to be exactly the size of that space. So neither of these things are going anywhere. The bed frame was welded, it was set into the vehicle. It looked really, really great to have that bed frame in there. We also had the closet on the end of the bed frame, and it was welded and secured in place. This is the last major piece of furniture that we had to put into this build. We were kind of waiting to build the bed frame because we knew that we would have to start walking over it to get in and out of the vehicle. We don't have our entry steps installed underneath the Wildlands door, so we've been using the moving ramp and this giant back door to get in and out of the vehicle, which has been really, really convenient. So we wanted to put off making the bed frame, but it was time to get that last major piece of the build in place, and we'll have to just walk over it for the time being until we have time to build those entry steps on the other side of the vehicle. Eventually the bed frame and the closet will get skinned with plywood. Obviously the bed frame will be supporting the mattress. The closet has drawers and lights and all kinds of things like that will be coming up in a future episode. I'm really excited to see this project take shape because it is one of those last major pieces of furniture before the whole build comes together.
Next up was the big project of the back doors. Much like the bed frame, we had put this off because it was easy to just get in and out of this massive opening. But eventually, it's time to get the doors on. We debated about what we wanted to do. Originally, it had that garage roll door. We knew that was coming off immediately. The roll door was the very first thing we demoed out of the vehicle. We knew that there was no way we were keeping that for many reasons. But we did really like the large opening. And we wanted to take advantage of this, so when you're in a nice area, a nice camp spot, you can let all that light in, all that fresh air. So we went through a whole bunch of different ideas. Thought about some really complicated things, decks, half opening doors, all this. In the end, the main thing we wanted to still be able to open and have that basically whole back wall open, which we thought would be really cool. It also allows for under the bed access like a garage. So after going through a bunch of stuff,
many ideas,
we decided to keep it kind of simple. And fortunately, Unicell actually makes these swing open doors that go in that same space. So we actually looked at maybe we'll just make them. But after kind of doing the numbers on time and material, it was worth it to just go buy them. And being that the factory isn't that far from us, we were able to drive and pick them up and save on the shipping cost.
So we called up Unicell and they told us that they would sell us just the swing out doors, the full size doors that they sell for the back of this model of Unicell. That was really convenient. We didn't have to build them. We didn't have to figure out how to make them seal against the outside of the vehicle so that they didn't leak. We were foreseeing a lot of challenges with making these doors ourselves. And the Unicell factory being right in Buffalo meant that we didn't have to get them shipped. We could just drive and pick them up. It was really convenient, and once we ran those numbers of building them ourselves, time, materials, just general designing and effort versus driving to the Unicell factory and buying these doors, we were pretty much sold.
They just handed us a box of hardware with no instruction at all. I called to see if maybe there was a PDF or something, and they're like, no, we don't have that. And I was like, well, there's got to be. I'm thinking there's original, but yeah, I guess if you're making them every day, you don't need that.
They just loaded up the door panels. They handed Drew a box of nuts and bolts and hinges, and we figured, oh, there's got to be directions in there. No directions whatsoever. But we said to ourselves, we can figure this out. We got this. And then we were sitting in front of a box of just random hardware going, how does this work?
Long metal rods and blocks of plastic and big hinges and all kinds of different bolts, and you're like, this is a puzzle with no instruction. All right, maybe that's why we really waited on them. We kind of like took days to look at it, kind of figured some stuff out, put it away for a little bit, came back, looked at it again. I think we were slowly developing the plan of attack on this over the last month or so. Then it got to the point we're gonna do this. Actually, that day of, I didn't know we were doing doors, and my brother was there to help, and we decided that was a good project to use the help on. We did finally come up with a game plan, and at some point you gotta start making some moves, but you definitely don't wanna be rushing this process because you gotta drill holes into the thing to mount the hinges as well as the door.
The first thing that we did before we even installed these doors was we took the hinges and painted them black. As you can see from everything that we've already done on the outside of the vehicle, we are kind of using black as the accent color to the white gel coat of the vehicle. So silver hinges were just not going to look very good. The very first step was to paint them black so that they would match everything else on the vehicle.
Once again, we had my brother there for an extra set of hands, and it was time to execute the plan. Once we painted the hinges, we had to figure out where they're going on the door. We made our measurements, we marked off where the hinges were going to go. The other step in this process was backing up that fiberglass with wood. We decided to go with some 1x3s to put behind where the hinges would mount. So it's not just the fiberglass, it's kind of distributing that weight against more of the fiberglass body when you put the bolts through to mount the hinges. And then we put the holes in. We drilled through the fiberglass, through the wood, and then the hard part was getting the hardware in there. It was a tight squeeze because the back of the wall sort of butted up to that compartment. You have to get in there with the bolt and the wrenches. That was kind of a battle.
These are really heavy duty hinges. You can tell they're made for this vehicle, they're made for this door, and they're a really common type of hinge that you see on trailer doors.
7 days of eternity, 7 days in another country. Every cell screams, stay right here, and my legs, they freeze us in fear. We got time after this, but I'll need you as my You shine so bright.
It was definitely necessary to have another set of hands while installing these back doors. You can probably see in the footage the size of us versus the height of this vehicle and the size of this doorway. It is gigantic. These doors are huge. Just seeing these panels held up in place, they're so much bigger than you think they are in your mind. So having an extra person to help hold them in place was essential.
Once we had the doors back in place and the hinges already mounted on the framing of the vehicle, we just simply closed the hinges onto the door and we started tapping the holes through the door. And once again, no instructions. So we put them in there and we kind of can tell there's a little bit of space for the door to fit in. So at this point, it's kind of resting on the bottom and all that space is at the top. I think this was the best plan of attack. We kind of spaced it out evenly by putting a board in and resting it there. So once we install the hinges, there'll be a slight gap on both. We really kind of wanted it closer to the top anyways, so it'll seal better. That's kind of your point where the water is going to get in. So we kind of had to do a spacer to make sure we were correct. Once those were tapped, we came back with some butyl tape and our hardware and started getting to work, putting those nuts and bolts on and locking it in place.
The windows closed, the fear and doubt. I stopped and turned, trying to find out. There might be something I forgot, but all I know is that I miss you a lot, a lot. 7 days of eternity, 7 days in another country. Every cell screams, stay right here, and my legs stay free.
The last part of this door installation, which was probably the most complicated, was figuring out this locking mechanism. Once again, this is just a box of like weird hardware I've never seen before, metal rods, trying to figure out how this door handle works.
Because the lock on the door handle wasn't assembled how it was supposed to be. It was just rods and pieces and parts, and we're looking at it and trying to figure out what the heck is going on. So it was a little bit complicated, but we did get it figured out.
Yeah, and the more we looked at it, we kind of realized that particularly the metal rods weren't, at least what we found, necessarily already sized to a perfect standard. I don't know, maybe it's so you could put them on different ways. I had to cut them down. As I was trying to make it work, well, it must go this way or this way. And it's like, well, this doesn't reach that way. It's too long this way. So I was like, well, all right, we'll figure out what we're going to do and then cut them to size. We tried to put the door handle lower so the internal handle will be concealed by the mattress but still accessible. You won't see this weird industrial looking handle in the middle of your bedroom. So it'll probably just be pushing into the mattress, which is fine because, you know, it's going to be a memory foam. And you'll still be able to open the door from the inside.
What's this all about? I don't know what you've been doing. All that I know is, oh, that I do miss you. I don't know.
The other component of this was putting these catches on both the top and the bottom. This part was tricky. Once again, you have to get everything just right. We kind of figured out that we had to mount the door handle and the locking mechanism, close the door, figure out where those catches needed to be, mark it off on the floor and up on the top of the door, pull it back apart, tap the holes, thread them in, hope we got it right, and then try to lock it.
You're finished with them, and I don't know if I'll see you once more. I will be forever yours. I will be forever yours. What if we're all part of a bigger plan? Would that explain why? Explain why you left me then? Would it help me understand? Now all I know is, oh, that I do miss, oh, that I do miss you. I don't know if I'll see you
they closed up and they opened. Didn't seem too hard. And they're sealed. Savannah could not get them open at first.
They're sealed so well. There's a rubber gasket on the inside of the door, and then there's a seal that kind of sets on the outside of the vehicle. There's a lot of different weather seals going on here, and when you really press the doors shut, those are sealing the door so well that it's sometimes hard to get the outside door open. Drew can do it no problem, but I don't necessarily have the strength to open that big of a door. So I have to like put my feet on the vehicle and pull the handle, and it looks ridiculous, but hopefully over time that will loosen up a little bit. It has gotten easier over time.
We got the back doors installed. It was a little challenging, but man, they are awesome. They open up, the whole back wall basically opens. It's the full width of the vehicle other than a couple inches on each side and maybe like 6 on the top. You're just opening your back wall, and it's really nice.
Coming up for these doors will be insulation and some kind of finishing veneer for the inside of the doors. We may also add windows to them, and we'll need some kind of catch to keep them open and make sure they don't slam against the side of the vehicle if it's windy. Not entirely sure what we're gonna do there, but still lots of work to be done on these doors.
It's time to close the doors on the doors. That was a couple days production. I think it took 3 days to really knock it all out, planning, tweaking, and I'm happy it's over, but I'm also really excited. They're awesome, and it's really nice to be able to completely open that space. I'm mostly excited to finally test out these buck doors. Put the moving ramp down, open these big buck doors open. They can let a buck right in.
Buck doors, event fan lovers.
Yeah, exactly.
That does it for episode 12. 2 smaller projects this week, as well as 2 huge projects. The final major piece of furniture for the inside of the Unicell, and a big step for the outside of the Unicell.
Thanks for sticking around. Hopefully the video was helpful and informative, and we will see you guys next week. Well, you'll probably see us next week. Either way, that wraps it up. We're going to get out of here. We will catch you guys in about a week.